Welcome, everyone. My name is Christian Camacho, and I serve as the SAP Leadership Fellow for our Springtide Ambassador Program, also known as SAP. Today, I have three Springtide ambassadors joining for our conversation about their political motivations and questions. We're hosting these conversations in advance for our forthcoming research releasing in 2024 about young people's political engagement and attitudes and exploring when and why religious and political beliefs intersect with young people. I'm very excited for folks to hear these three Gen Z perspectives from this group of SAP members. I'll have each of you introduce yourself first, starting with Brandon.
Hey, I'm Brandon. I'm 24. I live in Indiana, and something I love to do in my free time is I love to read.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. Gabriella.
Hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm from Washington and I'm 18 years old. I like to practice Taekwondo in my free time.
Thank you, Gabriella.
Hi, my name is Peyton. I'm 15. I live in Florida and I love to draw in my free time.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here today. I'm very excited to talk with the three of you. Again, my name is Christian. I'm 25 years old and I currently live in Tennessee. And I'm a big fan of podcasts and not so long car drives. I'm very excited to facilitate this conversation. Springtide has allowed for me to use my own personal degree, which is in political science, to discuss important topics like this with some of my own community members. All right, friends, well, let's jump right into the conversation. Starting with question one, and this one, Peyton, I would appreciate if you kick us off. Um, would you consider yourself a political person? Do politics or political issues interest you?
So for me personally, I'm not like avoiding a political conversation, but I'm not gonna go out searching for them or trying to start drama with them. If a conversation would get like too heated or argumentative, I'm not gonna just like throw myself into the mix and then like interject my opinion. But I love having good discussions and sharing my opinion on different subjects if it's gonna be like in a respectful and um, conversation type of way.
Awesome.
Yeah, for me, I would say that it's interesting the word political. It's such a negative word nowadays. Um, Sometimes when people say someone is political, they really mean that they talk that maybe it could mean that this person is divisive or whatever. I would say for me, um, I am a political person, but more so from the perspective of politics is something that's interesting to me, and and especially thinking locally, it feels like something that really matters. So
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
I agree with Brandon. Political is such a loaded term. Like, would I consider myself a caring person or a person who desires to be engaged? Yes. And I would consider myself a person that cares about government, about ethical laws, about informed voting. Yes. But I wouldn't consider myself socially active in a political party or desiring to be a politician. Furthermore, I heard a good quote from a woman named Nancy Pearcey lately. It was political office is not just a platform for sharing the gospel, and that God created the state for a purpose, and we need to ask what that purpose is. How do Christians work to advance justice and the public good, but not just in politics, in everyday life? We can make legislative victories, we can make ethical laws, but if culture isn't with us, it's not going to matter ultimately. So I care a lot more about living out good ethical laws in daily life rather than trying to win a political battle.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, the three of you, for that response. And that I do think at times the word political, you're right, it does have a lot of weight to it that means that they're decisive or divisive, excuse me, where it's more so like, oh, that person's very political. And it's like, well, do you mean that they are passionate or what? So yeah, good call on that. The next question we have, throw it over to Brandon. Um, is there any social or political issue that you especially care about, and why that issue in particular?
That's a really good question. I would say, so for me, I'm thinking a lot locally just because that's what my context, and I've yet to engage at the national level with politics as much. Um, but I would say locally, um, right now, the political issue, and I don't even know if this is considered political, but one of the issues that's been really on my heart has been around young people and just gun violence within youth, and crime, and as well as not having good support systems for non-nuclear families in cities. So yeah, I don't know a good way to say that. I don't know what the actual political term for that is. But yeah, a lot of the conversations I've been in have been around how can we, as community members, kind of partner with the school systems in providing support for at-risk youth. So that's something that really matters to me right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, I think for me, a political issue that like I care about would be more like humans' rights. It's not like just like one particular area, but just like areas like poverty, women's rights, and like um drought or like famine in different countries. I really just feel like that's something that we should like be doing more about. And I mean, we are doing a lot about it, but I just feel like that we can always do more. And I think I feel this way just because I'm very like empathetic and just like the household that I was raised in, we care a lot about that. And it's just like a natural part of me to want to like reach out and try to help people in whatever way possible.
Thank you.
For me, I also think that children, especially in other countries and in our own country, are very important to care about. That's why I care a lot about the family. I care about orphan children, impoverished children, especially those, like Brandon said, don't grow up in a nuclear family, don't have a mom and a dad to live with. Because family is the bedrock of society. Family is like the first covenant relationship a child is born into, literally. And when family falls apart, especially when birth families fall apart, the first covenant relationship is broken. So this naturally will lead to more disruption to the child's life. Childhood anxiety, depression, aggression from here can inspire gun violence, drug use, and so it all relates back to how the child is raised. I've noticed when I've read books in my um, social studies class in university that the children who are best prepared for the future, even if the kids ended up enduring the Holocaust or something like that, were kids who were raised in an environment where the parents valued teaching them how their worldview will prepare them for the future. And the kids who didn't have these supportive mentors are the ones who ended up falling apart more later in life. So, not to say that a kid cannot thrive if they do not have a mentor, but having mentors and a safe space to grow up in are highly important to having a functioning society later on.
Yes. Thank you, Gabriella. All right. And Gabriella, actually, I'm going to plug you for our third question. Do you think it's important for people in our society to be politically engaged or not?
Thanks for that question. I think that we should be engaged, but we should also be informed. As voters, we're taking responsibility to understand our communities, to be involved in our communities, and to understand the laws and the plans that we're supporting when we vote. So I don't think it's a good idea to be engaged and be voting engaged if we don't actually understand our communities and haven't seen things firsthand and how they work. So that's why I think education is really important to teach kids about their government, about their constitution, and about their history so that they can better understand how what they're saying today is going to affect politics and their future lives.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that I definitely agree with like Gabriella that like we shouldn't be engaged if we aren't informed. But at the same time, it's very important that everyone is informed and engaging because if we just ever hear like just one side of the argument or just like part of the argument, our government is going to be so biased and leaning one way. So like even if you're just a small voice, it's so important to like be that voice because there could be like hundreds of others who feel the same way, but they just don't want to like say anything. So, yeah, it's just very important to be engaged because if not, there will never be change and people might not ever even think to change.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that they said. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you. Peyton, why don't I throw this question at you? Do you think social media has impacted and or shaped your political views? Why or why not?
I try not to let social media impact me, and I don't think it has, just because I work hard to try to keep my For You page and my feed just like really light and like funny stuff so that I can like form my own opinions so that I don't have to be like constantly like checking what I'm watching. Like I do, but I don't have to like do it all the time. And I can just watch a funny video and enjoy it without having to like constantly be thinking every time I go on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I I do that too. I'm always conscious of my For You page, and I am active to, say this ad is irrelevant, or I don't want this. I know there's some features on social media where you can limit political posts. Um, Although right now I'm kind of high, I put it high. I would like all the political posts. But also sometimes where I'm just, it's a long day and just kind of constantly working and I can just go for some relaxing time.
I would say for me, I so the reality is I think social media has impacted all of us in the Gen Z world. Um, Whether or not it's informed our view, it's definitely in some ways impacted us, whether it's through more mindfulness in how we engage or whatever. Um, I would say for me, it's mostly a no. I don't feel like it informs my um I'm realizing that the question is, so is it impacted or shaped? I'm
Yes.
switching to informed. If that's okay. And for me, I would say it hasn't. I would say the only time it really informed my political views really was during COVID. And with the height of documentation of um police brutality and people's commentaries on those things, I would say it felt deeply impacted me. And part of why is because there was no face-to-face conversations because we were in lockdown, and so everyone was talking through social media. So
I'll jump off of that. Initially, I like to say that I'm not informed by my social media account because I actually don't have a social media account. This keeps me from being distracted on my homework, but it also keeps me from being distracted by fake news because I know that is easily spread due to echo chambers and due to the empowerment of anyone's voice, whether they're credible or not. But I also realize that my friends, my relatives have social media accounts, and the things they're telling me sometimes trace back to someone else's social media account, and usually it's their friend or another trusted individual who may or may not be credible in that area. So that's where I stand on social media accounts impacting me. Personally, if I do go into social media to see a thing about politics, I go to see diverse perspectives. For instance, if somebody with a different religion posted something that initially I feel hesitant to agree with, but I want to know more about. I might go look at their social media account and see if they say more about their topic there. And then knowing more where they stand, I can go and research that topic on the internet, better parse out my own views, find the truth, or at least attempt to try to figure out the truth, and ultimately understand that sometimes we have to settle that we won't be able to understand everything or know every single fact, and people come from different viewpoints, and every individual area on the world is like different. So that's why we get so many contradictory things that may not be necessarily contradictory, but I have to trust to try to walk ethically and humbly and justly and with mercy as much as I can while looking at social media accounts for politics.
Yes, yes. And you know, Gabriella, I think you're bringing something to light that we have been seeing with some of Gen Z is they're saying no social media. They're in a way, either having an account and deleting the app or kind of going on it every, sparsely once a month or so. I mean, because we grew up with it, this is something that we connect with. And Brandon, you brought up a good point where, during, COVID, it was one of those things where we weren't in contact physically with people. So the next thing we have is our phone that we can see, that we can visually, and we can call them and text them. And social media was a space too where we had people who had more influence, more accessibility to news than we did. And that became, our home. But some of us are also taking a step back and saying, it's a bit, it's hard. It's hard. Like Gabrielle, like you said, speaking of, checking out different diverse voices, um, it's yeah, it's something to reflect on.
Just a brief piggyback, and it's just a little thing about the social media thing. I deactivated my Instagram and haven't had it for like 3+ years. So yeah, I resonate with that stat.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally, I tend to just delete the app because I know there'll be some times where I'm like, you know what, I just need a break from it, or it's too much, it's too much there that is not good for my mental health. Um, Now the next question I'm going to throw to you guys, this one I'll throw to Brandon. Do you think your religion or spirituality shapes, impacts, or if you want to use the word again, informs your politics? How so, or why not?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Not in the way that it traditionally has been the expectation of how it informs, I would say it informs my politics through this belief in like communal flourishing and me believing that God longs to see shalom across the earth. And that's that through, I would say that God longs to see reconciliation on the earth as well, between people, between us and the earth as well. And so that kind of informs the way that I and that God is a God who is for those who are oppressed and marginalized. And so all of those things kind of inform how I live and even how I engage politically.
Yeah.
It feels harder now, honestly, thinking nationally, to like who to vote for and who not to vote for and what bills to, feels much more, it doesn't feel as black and white. So yeah.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with Brandon that my religion has definitely impacted like how I think about politics. I'm a Christian, so I read the Bible and I know the Bible definitely has like a few guidelines. I know Romans 13:1 says basically that we should respect any governing authorities put in place by God. And all in all, like I'll trust God with my life. And so like I think it's very important to have an opinion and stuff, but that shouldn't make us like not trust him in like what authorities are being put in place. And I think it's important to share our opinion, but I'm not gonna go and once an opinion is set in place, go and revolt about it or something like that.
I'll jump in here too. My parents and grandparents and high school teachers definitely inform my views, especially my ethics and apologetics teachers. I also would identify as Christian, and my leaders have taught me to value my worldview and to ask by what standard different views are made. So, for instance, this is to analyze a view based on the creation of the view, what it views about the fall, and how it views redemption. So, for example, how does a view begin? Like, where did the view come from? So, analyzing what originally that worldview stems from, what does it say about how the world was created, how society used to function, and then how did it fall? Like, what went wrong? What exactly is the problem being addressed by this political position? And then redemption, how is it saying it's going to be fixed? What can we do about it? How will it be set right again? So all these questions I tie back into my Christian worldview. I like to analyze the Bible, see what examples and principles are in there, and then compare any view I come in contact with the creation, fall, and redemption framework. Recently, I was writing a paper about government and thinking deeply about how biblical leaders used to engage with government. And I noticed there was a man named Nehemiah in the Bible who was seeing how governments and governors were acting, and they were extracting interest unfairly from their people, and their indebted people were suffering, they were scraping, starving. And so Nehemiah took the first step to lend them food and money. After that, Nehemiah confronted the governors in the name of the Lord to repent and to exact that's saying that they're exacting interest contrary to their laws. Basically, some of the governors decided to pay back the interest, but not everything they'd done was completely fixed. So when Nehemiah eventually did become governor, rather than repay the people with benefits for years of oppression under an abused government system, he simply stopped abusing the taxation system during his rule. Today, I believe our world needs leaders like Nehemiah who will lend money and food to those who are actively trying to repay their debts, those who are lacking homes, those who are lacking sustenance. And we need leaders who confront those in power for their actions that should be illegal, such as people who are renting illegally condemned homes to families, something like that. We need people to try to fix the problems in our government, but we also need to understand that anything we start today won't necessarily end years of problems and oppression from the past. Just like Nehemiah, redemption starts today by choosing to no longer use the law to oppress and by foregoing our own entitled desires and choosing mercy instead.
All right. Thank you all for those wonderful responses. The next person I'm going to throw it over to is Peyton. And Peyton, if you could kick us off, question to you is, if you could tell the world what everyone should know about young people and politics, what would you say?
So for me personally, I would just share that I think a lot of Gen Z and like I know for me personally, I just want to have a conversation about politics. I want to listen to everyone's opinion and I don't want to just like argue over and over again and like just like argue without even listening, you know? I want to make sure to like listen to others, hear them out, and then formulate my opinions around those. And then we can actually have like a conversation on what laws to change and who to vote for even just because like now I know what people are thinking and you can also then like be more careful around people knowing like okay, you're very opinionated about this and I'm going to respect that and not just continue to press my view upon you. So like overall just let's just discuss, not argue without listening.
My simple phrase is that we are not a monolith.
I would say that I do need adults and trusted individuals to help me navigate media, statistics, data, ideologies, speeches, etc. And Gen Z, at least from my perspective, isn't just trying to be independent on our own. We really do need individuals to help mentor us and help us see what and where the truth is. I don't want to see a fact value split in culture. I don't want to see where our faith is considered taboo in the public sphere. I want people to openly be able to say what their worldview is, what their ethics are, what their values are, and being able to apply this on a daily life, whether this be just in the workplace, how they interact with others, how they vote, how they speak about politics, etc. And I want to hear about both the facts and about the personal stories, the firsthand experiences. I don't want it just to be complaining when we're talking about problems. I'll be more prone to listen to you if you can offer a solution, or at least try to tell me where you're trying to go with the solution or what you see your ideal solution is, and we can talk from there. But when conversations tend to go toward the complaining route, that's when I'm more prone to shut off my listening ears and not want to engage.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And now, as we near the end of our time together, I'm going to have Brandon do the concluding, if you could start off the concluding question. What political questions are you asking or curious about, especially in this presidential election year?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the question for me is how do I engage faithfully with yeah, how do I engage faithfully even though what I feel like is in front of me is poop?
Some questions that I'm asking, just like some like my dad's a researcher, so I'm constantly like thinking about these questions. But like just like I'm curious to see where Gen Z will vote. Like not like who, but more like party wise, if they're gonna follow. Like I know a lot of older generations just really stick to the parties. Like we are hardcore Republican or hardcore Democratic, and there really hasn't been a bunch of the independent party rise. And so I'm just really curious to see if Gen Z will like take a different route with that, or if they'll like continue to follow after their parents or their grandparents. So
Um,
I want to ask questions about like what's the candidate's history? What's their integrity? Who are they gonna run with as their running mate? What's their history and integrity? Who's been keeping their promises? Who would we say is more honest? And when is it a moral appropriate time not to vote for one of the two main parties? Like when is it time to take a third stance? Who has a better plan with their money? Who's shown that they can both budget money wisely in personal finance and in giving, in economy, and in providing jobs for the lower class, for the middle class, even for higher class people. Furthermore, and basically lastly, by what standards are they making their choices, both for the government and their daily life? This means like, how do they assume the way society is supposed to be? How are they trying to get there? What are they saying is the cause of the problem? And how do they say the world is going to be made right? It's very important for me that when we're coming up with solutions, the solution isn't, for example, me giving my money to the third party and the third party giving that to the person who need it. I want our society to be fostering where I can personally give my resources to another, and then we can communally grow off each other. It's not just top down from one to another, but back and forth. And whoever can support this is someone that I will admire. So there's a lot of things going in this current political state, and I have faith that I have a God who's in charge, but ultimately it is very, very scary, and it's a lot of things I feel like I need to ask.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you all for your responses, for the questions. Very fruitful. This is an election year, so definitely our curiosity and our questions will just continue to grow month by month up until it's time to vote. So thank you so much, Gabriella, Brandon, and Peyton, for sharing your input today. It really has been such a pleasure to chat with the three of you and get to know you a bit more. Be sure to follow Springtide on social media and make sure you're signed up for our newsletter so you can be the first to hear about our politics research as it releases. You can find all that information at springtideresearch.org. And until next time, thank you all for your time, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.